It was a good game. I mean,
Yeah.
It kind of sucks that we have to talk about the refs, to start out, because this was a pretty good game. This was definitely probably the most exciting week by far whenever it comes to entertainment value from games.
No, I agree.
Definitely in the postseason.
No, I agree completely. I think this, in a way, this was Jared Goff's coming out party. I mean, I know we've been impressed with him all season and seen this, that, and the other. Well, that was kind of a bad way to phrase that.
I've not been entirely.
I wouldn't say I've not been impressed, but I've not been sold that he was definitely worthy of a first overall pick. But if you go to a Super Bowl eventually, then I can't argue with it, even if I don't think that he's necessarily on the caliber of someone.
He threw some dots out there.
Yeah, and definitely one of the biggest things that people have said about Jared Goff is his inability to face down pressure, and that's a pretty damning thing. Especially in the NFL with how elite these pass rushers can be. But he really stepped up, especially late in the game. Jared Goff was making some plays out there, especially with defensive players in his face.
Oh, yeah, for the most part, I was super impressed, especially whenever they were able to create some outs for him on the flat. I mean, he was actually just getting beaten down, and he would sidearm something out, especially on one play. I think it went out to Higbee, and he just took it up the field, and that was Jared Goff just being able to find an out under pressure. And I'm still not sold on him as someone who can, beat the Patriots in a Super Bowl, but I definitely think that he didn't play like a world beater, but he definitely got the job done. He made some very big throws, especially on that rollout late in the game, which I think he did get to Higbee. He rolled way far out of the pocket, threw it deep to an open man, and extended the drive on a third down, I believe.
Yeah.
It was very impressive.
Definitely very impressive play late in the game. That's what allowed the Rams to come back in this game and win it. Yeah, moving on here. The defensive line for Los Angeles really held up to their standard with Sue and Donald, and then they got into Breeze's face a lot.
Sweet mama.
Yeah, that seemed to be the reason that New Orleans couldn't sustain success, especially after the fake punt that the Rams had gave them momentum.
That was a ballsy fucking call.
Yeah, it was a successful fucking call, especially very early in the game, whenever... Well, honestly, if you think about it, if you do something like that early in the game where you try to get momentum, you have more time to come back from it later. So I guess it was just, such a smart, gutsy call in a way. It's kind of like Doug Peterson making a, kind of like a wild card decision, but in a smart way, doing it the right way, and, looking better as a coaching staff because of it.
Yeah, that's something that the Saints did in the divisional round that eventually sparked their comeback, and why they beat us is they ran that fake punt. It was like in the second quarter, and it really just swung the momentum into their favor, and it was all Saints the rest of the way. So, that, especially if you do it in a safe spot, like early in the game, like you said, where you have plenty of time to come back from it can swing momentum into your favor, and it creates a really good spark.
That Rams D-line is exactly who we thought they were going to be.
Yeah.
Especially, they had 2 sacks, and they got 7 quarterback hits, and the biggest one came on not the very last play of the game, the last possession the Saints had in overtime. They got right in Breeze's face and hit him and just throw the fucking ball up in the air.
Yeah, the Steelers had a really big game. Ndamukong Suh had 2 sacks, or he had 1.5 sacks. Dante Fowler had 2 tackles for losses. They were able to get some good pressure on Breeze on a lot of those drives after the first quarter. Because, New Orleans has kind of been overwhelmed at different points during the season whenever it comes to D-line. There was definitely a lot of pressure early from the Eagles before Fletcher Cox and Michael Bennett got hurt. And then you remember the Cowboys game like we talked about last week. They were able to get pressure. And this was kind of a repeat of that. Drew Brees was getting pressured a lot after that first quarter. And I think that was, he just couldn't put it together completely after that. It allowed them to come back into this game and give that offense on the other side opportunities.
Yeah, and even going beyond them getting pass rush, they really stuffed this Saints run game here. They held Mark Ingram to 31 yards on 9 attempts and Alvin Kamara to 15 on 8. That is something you do not expect to see from the Saints rushing attack. Now, Kamara tore it up in the passing game, but that's completely different. The Saints team has been really balanced, and without that other half of their offense, it became a struggle for them.
Yeah, I do want to, expound a little bit on what you said. Alvin Kamara did have a huge game. Breeze was going to him very often during this game, particularly during the kind of the middle meat of this game. And they were playing some pretty good, decent man, but he was, getting open on wheel routes. He was getting open on crossers. he was very impressive in this game from a receiving standpoint. From a rushing standpoint, absolutely not. I mean, that's a very hard thing to do when going up against a defensive line like that as a speed back coming up the middle and going out to the side like that. But, Alvin Kamara is a stud, and I think that says more about this Rams defense than it is Alvin Kamara because, my gosh, he was so
100%.
impressive.
Oh, yeah. Much as I don't like him right now, that's a different point.
Yeah, I think the bigger story whenever it comes to the run game is that Mark Ingram, even though he did have a couple of plays, he did have a 16-yard run at one point, but especially when he got driven back in overtime, that was an example of this D-line just coming through, Aaron Donald just wrestling him in the backfield after Ingram had to escape. I mean, they were shutting down the run handily, and go figure, I said it would probably be a run fest, so shows what I know.
I'm telling you, man, the NFL's, they're on to us, man. They're listening to us. They're trying to make us look like fools.
They are, absolutely.
Except for me, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, Gimli, you're Nostradamus over there emulating your...
I'm not Romo yet.
Emulating your favorite human. But speaking of rushing attacks, the Rams, Gurley, he was pretty much non-existent in this game.
Todd who?
Exactly.
So the word on the street is that there's a good chance that he's hurt. He seems to be denying that. I guess the story he's putting forth is that he wasn't worthy of being in the game, so he wasn't, and that C.J. Anderson took his reps instead. I mean,
that's a really fucking weird statement.
Yeah, it's insane.
Well, I was definitely paraphrasing there, but C.J. Anderson played really well in that divisional round, and
you're telling me.
I mean, I do think it says something to have an NFL player show this kind of humbleness and be able to kind of see things in the bigger picture, but he's Todd Gurley, straight up. I mean, there's no real reason that C.J. Anderson should be getting 16 carries and Todd Gurley should be getting 4 carries. If Todd Gurley's not hurt, I mean, he wasn't a factor in the pass game either. You usually see him having a lot of receiving work during games, so I have to believe that something's up. Something has gone awry.
Yeah, I mean, if he's not hurt, you got to get him his reps and his looks because he is a game changer. But yeah, I mean, C.J. Anderson, he didn't do too hot. What if I remember correctly? What was that stat line?
Oh, C.J. Anderson, he was 16 carries for 44 yards for a 2.8 clip, no touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean,
he was bottled up pretty well, which is pretty impressive considering Sheldon Rankins was gone from the defense. I think Demario Davis probably had a big game. I believe he had 14 tackles, 9 of those solo, 1.5 tackles for loss. It's pretty good by the Saints linebacking core.
Super solid.
Definitely picked up the slack for that missing power.